freaks, and welcome to another episode of the Snowies Camping Show. You are here with Lauren and Ben as usual. And before we get stuck in, if you haven't subscribed already wherever you listen to your podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, do that to make sure you don't miss another episode. Also jump onto the Snowies Camping Show on Facebook and get involved in the conversation that we have around each episode and also future ones as well. So today we're talking about a topic that's near and dear to our hearts.
Definitely.
And it's fairly topical as well with the increase of new people into camping and outdoor adventuring over the last sort of 12 to 18 months as well. But it's leave no trace camping or zero waste camping. Basically, don't leave your trash around and clean up after yourself. And it's very frustrating when you rock up to certain campsites and you see that people haven't maybe left it the way that you would in sort of your own personal preference with that side of things. But we're also aware that with the increase of people who are new to camping, that possibly there is sort of practices or codes or ethics around it that isn't maybe necessarily known, or things that are assumed.
Yeah, we mentioned that just before, that we're quick to get angry or annoyed when there's rubbish in the campsite, but maybe we should give some people the benefit of the doubt. And so maybe it's because there's a lot of people camping in today's day and age that weren't camping, a couple of years ago. It's a different lifestyle to many, and maybe this isn't considered or understood as much. So I think maybe we'll take the approach that let's look at it from fresh eyes and revisit the
that's right. I mean, it's easy to go into the whole, well, it's just common sense, but I guess for a lot of people who haven't maybe grown up interacting with the environment and things like that, or don't have a long history of camping, it might not actually be common sense.
Let's assume that. I think, it's probably a good way about it. But there is a set of principles called leave no trace that you do see associated with many brands, like what we've got in front of us here. There's a trash sack here that Cedar Summit make, and it's got this leave no trace outdoor ethics stamp on it, and there are certain products that bear that stamp, and that is without going into too much detail on it, it's a set of outdoor ethics or principles. I think it's 7 principles that they list off, which just sort of covers the very basics of when you head into the outdoors, how you can do so and enjoy it and leave minimal impact on the environment for the environment, but also for future campers who are going to be in the same spot down the track.
Totally. So, I mean, basically, first things first, if you pack it in, you pack it out. If you had enough room to take it with you to begin with, you've got enough room to take it out. So there's not sort of really an excuse in terms of that respect of not taking things out with you. I think possibly sometimes that mistake can occur when people, especially if they're going to paid sites or things like that, they're assuming that maybe there's a site caretaker, or perhaps there's somebody that comes around and does a cleanup or does a rubbish collection and things like that, which isn't the case generally. If you've got room to take it, you've got room to take it home with you.
This is especially prevalent with station stays or properties where the owners have let people camp there. Might be a spot near the river and they say we're allowing people to camp here. It's semi-maintained, I suppose, but they're not allocating time to maintain it or making any promises. Those sort of places we're seeing closed down on the basis that those property owners are saying, if you can't look after it, I'm not going to let you in to the property.
That's right.
And gates are shut and you
literally
can't use it
in a camping Facebook group that I'm in online, there has been a post in the last month or so of one such privately owned property that's open for bush camping, and they have essentially made a post saying that they're considering closing because they're feeling quite unsupported in general in their attempts to offer this free / low cost bush camping place, with people pulling fences out of areas and driving in because they want to camp in these fenced areas. So they're just removing the fences and leaving rubbish and things like that. So, that's one very recent example of a place that will close down if people don't take better responsibility for themselves. And, an experience I had earlier in the year was always available for you to free camp. Now council have closed it down for that exact same reason. It's just trashed all the time and people don't respect it. So your option to camp there is being completely removed. And we're hearing stories like that pop up all the time, or at least I am, amongst friends and family and the broader community, where camping options are slowly being reduced and limited because of just disrespect and destruction to the properties and the spaces. So it is really important.
I know I've put up on campsites on the side of the Murray and just for lunch stops, I'm pretty sure it's a free campsite. There's quite a bit of that along the Murray, paid stuff as well. And just, rubbish quite obviously left in the middle of the campsite. It's not like it was accidentally left. There was a box of rubbish in the middle of the campsite. So as you drove away, you could see it in your rearview mirror. You could see it if you did a final check of the campsite. So there was no accident about it. I think even those campsites that are paid for and maintained, there are rubbish facilities there. But if you're able to take it home and put it in your rubbish bin at home, it saves more resources in that campsite, or the resources counsellor, whoever needs to put into the campsite. And it's going to keep camp fees down as well, because they're not investing so much time in having to maintain it, because the people who are using it are doing most of the work anyway.
Yeah.
So,
if the bin is there and it's overflowing, don't just dump it on the ground next to the bin. Like that.
If you carried it in,
real frustrating. Carry it in, carry it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another really important part of it is planning ahead and being prepared, so that you can, if you are sort of focusing more on a zero waste, meaning that when you go away, there is little to no waste that you have to take with you anyway. That's really important, and it can then also obviously reduce your need to have to take your rubbish back out with you if you don't really have any.
And so by that you mean, so when you're packing your food, have a look at the packaging you've got. Can you shed some of this packaging and put it in the appropriate recycling or waste before you leave? And when you're in the field, you've got less to worry about.
That's right.
Even if there's cardboard wrapping, kind of think, well, this can be kindling to start my fire or something like that later. So you're using it, not dumping it or putting it just in trash where someone else has to deal with it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
A bit of plan ahead's good there.
Yeah, it is. And like preparing things like sort of preparing your food and planning for your food in advance, because I think food waste is one of the largest contributing factors of rubbish. You can possibly prepare meals beforehand, like pre-chop onions and carrots and things that you might need, or even make a full meal, like if you're going to make spag bog or something like that, make it at home and take a batch with you frozen in a tub or in a Vaxil bag or something like that. Just, trying to plan it more so that you're not constantly having rolling output of food waste and packaging waste is really helpful to sort of limiting the rubbish that you have to store.
Yeah, planning for leftovers is good too. If you've got extra, we've got some examples in front of us here, but these silicone containers are collapsible, so they pack flat and then they pop out. And if you've got leftover pasta or bolognese or strog, whatever you've made, don't ditch it or whatever. You've got containers, you can put it in the fridge and have it for lunch the next day. It saves you spending time making lunch.
Yeah.
But don't just throw that stuff sort of under a tree and think animals will eat it, because it affects the ecosystem, and if it doesn't get eaten, it sits there for the next person to have to look at when they're camping.
Yeah, that's right. And food waste is something that I think people might look at and go, it's organic, it'll break down, it's sort of biodegradable. But for food to really actively break down well, it has to be composted well. It can't just be thrown on the ground or just, buried below the dirt or whatever. And and like you say, that can affect the local ecosystem and animals that are around, and it can also become festy. Like especially if you're going to campsites that are regularly used, imagine if everybody just left their food waste there, it would stink. Do you know what I mean? You'd get flies and all sorts of horrible stuff. So planning well to reduce your food waste and your packaging waste is important.
Absolutely. Other samples we've got in front of us here, I don't know if we're talking too early about this, but I wanted to point out this trash sack that we've got here as well, where we say carry it out. These are a really good option to help carry that waste out, because you can put a plastic bag inside, seal it all up. So if it is in your car, quite often I think people are worried about smelly rubbish in their car, but bags like this, roll top bags, seal that smell up. So if you've got
they're like
waste,
a dry sack or a stuff sack that's dry and waterproof, so there's no smells, no leaks, something like that.
Yep.
Even like your wheel bags and things on 4-wheel drives, people use them for, your cans and your beer bottles and things, and don't throw them in the fire, because as much as you think they're going to burn and they're not, they're just going to end up being rubbish in a fire pit ultimately.
Like bean and tuna cans are usually a common thing in there.
Like that. Just take them home.
Go away.
It's good to have a couple of different options for rubbish and recycling and things like that. So and even if you take it out, it's not like you necessarily have to take it the whole way home. You can just stop at your next stop in your town or your petrol station and put it in the bin there. It doesn't have to be in the car the whole time. Yeah.
And you got more chance of trying to segregate it into recycling and waste if you go into a town as well, rather than just landfill.
Absolutely.
I think on a slightly different note, the other sort of principle of leave no trace is to just sort of leave, I always say, footprints and tie marks. So you're not taking things off the ground, like if you've found a heap of nice rocks. I mean, the kids do like to collect stuff.
Yeah.
I think a small amount is okay, but don't let them take an entire log or in a marine environment, too many of the shells and things. You're supposed to leave that there because it is part of the environment. If everyone took a heap of shells, there'd be no shells left.
Yeah.
And same with the rocks.
That's exactly right. And I think a lot of people possibly think about it in the context of, well, it's just a shell. But then in the context of if every single person who goes camping has that same attitude, then it isn't just one shell. So it's sort of just being mindful of not only your own sort of individual impact, but the impact of the whole camping community.
Yeah.
And sort of making sure that the choices that you're making are choices that you would hope other people make, and that you're also possibly like leading by example for other fellow campers and things like that as well.
Nothing like pulling into a campsite that doesn't have footprints or tire marks in it.
I know.
It's like you're the first person ever to camp there.
It feels so good. Like, this is mine. Yeah. Another sort of, I think, a bugbear of mine, and it's relevant because I was away on the weekend and it was an issue for me, is toilet waste. Really,
sorry, that was a big moan there.
Yeah, it was a big moan, but it really gets my goat. So
it's worse than food waste.
It's worse than food waste. I totally appreciate the whole concept of digging a hole. If you are going to dig a hole, though, I would really strongly recommend that you dig a very big, very large, dedicated toilet hole for the duration of your trip and use that as your toilet, and not essentially put gopher holes all over the landscape that are filled with wet wipes or even, apparently biodegradable toilet bags or things like that. Because this place that I went to on the weekend, I absolutely love it, but just a quick sort of 20-minute walk into the bush around the campsite, easily 20 different sort of holes that you could see that have been half dug up by wildlife with like actual Glad garbage bags that have been buried in there, which someone's obviously, gone to the toilet in a bag and buried it, but not taken responsibility for it and not put it in a proper size hole. And then you've also got things like wet wipes just strewn across the landscape, because if they're biodegradable on the packet and a wet wipe, that they're biodegradable in a septic system or in a toilet system. They're not biodegradable just in dirt in the ground. And same thing with toilet paper. Toilet paper is just paper, but it's not biodegradable. It will get wet. It'll turn into cement. You know what I mean? Like just this gross toilet paper mash, and it'll just stay there. It's like there are so many different options for safe, healthy and responsible toileting when you're in the bush, and portable toilet options when there isn't toilet facilities provided for you. There's really no excuse to behave that way.
Absolutely. I've always used, I think I know where you're talking about camping, and there are toilets within probably 500 metres to a kilometre of most campsites. I've always used the premise with my kids, if we need number twos, we're getting in the car, we're going to drive to the toilet and we're just going to use those facilities because they're there.
Yeah.
Number ones, you can use a tree away from water sources and stuff.
Yeah.
But
and
just got to plan
if you're going to do a wee, if you're a bloke, lucky you, if you're a child blokes, or a kid or whatever, or a woman, you can just use some toilet paper, throw it in the fire. If you've got a campfire, wash hands, then there's literally no waste, and that's, that's reasonable. But even if you can get portable toilets that are literally just a fold out frame and a toilet seat that you can put over a hole, and that can be your dedicated toilet. And then that way it's buried deep enough.
Yep. Just dig one hole for the weekend. Yeah. And if you are going to use a toilet with a bag or anything in it, when you go to dispose of that, don't put the bag in a long drop toilet, just the contents, because that doesn't break down either. You need to go to I'm not sure where you'd actually dispose of an actual in a bag. It's
I'm not sure.
I prefer not to use
maybe
bags.
would they go in the waste dump? I'm not 100% sure. But like places like Wiki Camps, they and other resources will show you where your local dump point is, or closest sort of toileting dump ports and things like that.
Yep.
And give you the information for that, because also with portable toilets like Dometic porta potties and things like that, they can't just be tipped down a toilet. They can't just be tipped down. They have to go into a proper RV/caravan dump point.
Because the chemicals in them will kill all the bacteria in the long drop toilets, which are composting toilets.
Yep.
And when we complain about stinky toilets, that's probably because someone's dumped chemicals down there that have killed all that bacteria and it's not doing its job. So
exactly right.
Yeah.
I think also when we're sort of talking about gross sorts of waste. Moving on from toilets though, dishwashing liquid and like grey water / black water. Black water's not – grey water is dishes and shower stuff, isn't it? Black water's toilet stuff.
I'm not sure.
I can't really remember.
I've always sort of grey water is washing machine and dishwater.
Showers and things like that.
It's dirty with a bit of dishwash liquid and some food scraps and stuff in it.
Yeah.
So
and like, again, I think I personally have, and I'm pretty sure we've all had an experience where you rock up to a campsite and someone's either used a caravan there or what have you, and just right in the middle of the campsite is this boggy sort of muddy puddle that's been out of the previous camper's way, but it's got bits of food in it or like grey fluffy stuff from washing laundry or showering, I don't know, and it's just gross. And there are flies there and it's not clean water, and it really can't just be dumped on the ground. Yeah.
Well, what do you do with it then? Because I've always thought it's a bit like a caravan or a camper. They have the silage hose, right? If it was me, considering future campers, I guess you try and spread it out a bit. Like if you're going to put it straight on the ground, leave it somewhere for one day and then move it so that you're kind of spreading it out a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard to carry grey water with you, but I guess that part of that's preparation, isn't it? In not trying not to wash up too much stuff in the first
preparation.
place.
And I think it's a bit different as well if you have dishwashing water and you're using, your Dawn or your standard kitchen sink chemical and things like that. It's a bit hard for you to then just go and dump that water that is full of all of that chemicals or even body wash from your shower and things like that just onto the ground. Whereas like I know we talk about Cedar Summit a lot, but Cedar Summit do a wilderness wash, which is like a biodegradable wash that is friendly to use within certain distances of watercourse, and it's like an all-purpose thing. You can use it for your clothes, you can use it for your dishes, you can use it for your body and your hair, like it's all-purpose wash. So that's what we use. And I know that we generally, and I don't know if it's best practice, so if anybody out there has a better idea, but generally we try to dig a hole and have sort of like a drainage hose from like the base of our shower, for example, that goes down into the hole so that we can cover it up. And we know that even though it's sort of a grey water, it's not necessarily full of chemicals. And then when we cover it up, it's just flat surface of ground. It's not boggy. It's not muddy. It's sort of been taken care of from that respect.
And nature can kind of take its course in with filtration of that water through the groundwater and everything.
That's right.
But I think preparation ahead and thinking let's try not to wash too much in the first place is a good option, because I tip mine out, but I try and spread it a bit so it's not just one boggy mess, like
That's
you
right.
say.
And sometimes with dishes as well, I will sort of avoid doing a full load of dishes if I can get away with like I buy some recycled paper towel, and if I can get away with just giving stuff a wipe down with paper towel, and then you can use the paper towel in the fire or as sort of kindling or whatever like that to get it started, then that is helpful. I find. And then you're not sort of, A, you're reducing how much water you need to carry, but B, then you're reducing the amount of wastewater that you have if you're limiting when you do need to do your dishes.
I think the limiting or reducing things is a big key thing here, because you are going to have to put your dishwater somewhere. You're going to have to wash up, like you need to be hygienic.
Yeah, of course.
But if everyone just thinks a little bit around how much they're just tipping out, it's going to make a difference for everyone.
A huge difference.
Yeah. I think we covered off on food scraps before as well, but I don't think we mentioned the animal side of it. We did touch on it a bit. If you chuck food scraps down, you're feeding the local wildlife that food that's not their normal food. So it's a bit like feeding seagulls at the beach. They start to get an unhealthy diet of chips because they come back to this easy food source. So doing the same thing around a campsite.
Totally. Yeah. And fires, I'm always like, you definitely need a fire, no questions asked, and you're not.
Well, no, it's a funny one. I'm going away this weekend, and I just asked you before the episode, do you know where I can grab some firewood on the way there? So I will have a fire. Yeah. But I know there's a fire pit. Yeah. And I'm not going to be just having a bonfire.
Yeah, totally.
Raw ground, and I'll be respectful of the fire pit. So.
And considering whether or not you need one is really important, I guess. And I mean, I would say yes, because most of my cooking's done on the fire. And of course, people love comfort fire, but like you say, if you're going to have a raging fire from morning till night and you bring your wood with you, you're not trying to take it from the landscape, things like that, and you're not sort of leaving this huge, big heaving fireplace thing.
Smoldering mess, yeah. Yep. I'll have one. It's a comfort fire that I'll be having, but it's because I'm taking kids and I want them to have the experience of a bit of, just Jaffa line on the campfire and stuff. But
marshmallows, all that sort of stuff.
I know you've got to campfire is part and parcel with camping, just with consideration.
And like you said, if there is a fire pit there provided, especially in national parks and things like that, just use the fire pit.
Yeah, so it's just one scar on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. On fires, try and use a gas stove if you can for cooking. So I guess if you can't, it's good for summer, I suppose, use a gas stove. But if you can use a gas stove, depending on what you're cooking, if you don't need a comfort fire, maybe you can use a gas stove to cook by. So that's minimising the amount of times you might actually need a campfire. So I won't have a campfire for breakfast, lunch and dinner. I'm going to have a campfire at night for a bit of cooking, for warmth at night. But breakfast and lunch, I'll just use a camp stove. So I haven't continually got a fire burning. But that's just how I operate.
And I think also when you are looking at camp stoves, there are some options which use like disposable propane canisters and butane canisters and things like that. Maybe have a think about it and really consider your stove needs, because obviously there are options like the stoves I just mentioned that do generate quite a lot of waste and do end up leaving you with exhausted gas canisters that you just have to trash or throw in the bin or whatever. I was actually reading recently REI in the USA, they're having this huge problem with those disposable propane canisters.
So
because
lunchbox things you're talking about, isn't it?
No, these are they're sort of like a green they're not the ones like a hairspray can. They're the ones that are a bit heavier duty. They're like painted green.
They're 450 something grams.
Yeah, something propane canisters.
Not the butane ones, the propane
That's right.
ones,
And they're often the ones that people will take in place of a proper like LPG or swap and go or refillable gas bottle, but they can't be recycled. They can't
really?
whatever. They're just they're like a sink. They can't be refilled either. And there's just like this huge issue with places in America. And I found out about that through one of our Snowy's customers actually, who works with like Clean Up Australia and, keeping SA beautiful and that sort of stuff. And he does a lot of volunteer cleanup work and has also talked about those propane canisters starting to become a really huge problem with campsites. And
because they're quite substantial, aren't they? And you can't just take them, like there's steel in them, but you can't just take them to recycle them like normal steel. You've got to dispose of them in a safe way. So,
I'm not, and with things like that, people have to, maybe look on Red Cycle or go to a specific recycling place. It's not as easy as just popping it in your bin at home. So people possibly don't like the hassle or the extra mile that they have to go to dispose of those responsibly. So even though, yes, they're convenient because they're lighter and all that sort of stuff, you can get refillable LPG gas bottles down to like 1.25 kilo size. There's sort of, if you are going to be camping regularly and you are realizing that a lot of your fuel waste through stoves is high and you're disposing of a lot of stuff, consider a gas bottle. Again. Consider a gas bottle.
Yeah. Or liquid stove, liquid fuel.
Or liquid fuel stove.
Liquid fuel recently. I think I'm converted. I've just started using it, but don't have to worry about gas bottles. You get containers obviously of liquid fuel, but it tends to last quite a while. So less waste, and don't have to carry empty fuel canisters out afterwards. So. One other thing I mentioned on fire pits too, if you are having a fire and you're concerned about leaving a scar on the ground, fire pits, like the actual fire pit in terms of the portable ones, are a good option because it just lifts it off the ground. You will get ash on the ground, but you can spread it out a little bit and you're not creating this sort of hot kind of environment on the ground.
Definitely.
We should summarise on things. So pick up your rubbish. And if you see other rubbish, just pick a little bit of that up as well. If everyone takes their own rubbish and picks up other stuff they leave lying around, because we'd be naive to say none of us have had a piece of rubbish blow away in the wind across the campsite. We can't find it. That happens. But if we all pick up those things when we see them, it keeps things cleaner. So pick it up even if it's not yours. Zero waste camping. We didn't really talk on that, but the premise of that is
Well, I guess we touched a little bit on it with, planning and preparing, and zero waste is coming from the angle of when you go camping, that throughout the course of your trip you won't be generating any waste. There won't be anything for you to bring back necessarily from a rubbish perspective because you've planned and prepared. So things like using reusable tubs or, on the weekend when I went away, we got some barbecue meat and things like that, but I put it all in tubs in the freezer instead of taking it on the trays. So I didn't have, Glad wrap or waste or butcher paper or any of the stuff that would come with it when you buy it, because you've prepared that way, and therefore you've been able to take care of your rubbish and your mess at home before you even go. So that sort of principle of things, I think.
You're just not carting rubbish around.
Not carting rubbish around.
The last one we should mention too is that you can get involved in certain organisations. I know there's some people in the office who know, in our office here at Snowy's, who know people who are involved in, I forget the name of a cleanup. I think they're a Facebook group or a Clean Up Australia type group where they're just actively out there cleaning up campsites and destinations in the outdoors in Australia. So if you want to do more, jump on and just be involved in that.
Definitely.
And, every little bit helps. You don't have to give your life away to it.
And like that Leave No Trace organisation, you can jump online and have a read through, get some inspiration and hot tips from that in terms of how you can reduce your overall impact when you are camping and outdoors, and doing some zero waste stuff through that as well.
Yeah. Outback Cleanups Australia. That was the one that I was thinking.
Yeah, that's the one for sure.
Yep, so jump on there. I think, I hope that gives people a good idea, particularly the new campers, on when they're out there going, well, what do I do with my waste? What do I do with my toileting habits? What do I do with my food scraps?
Yep.
Just have a think about it. Hopefully that gives you something to sort of consider moving forward. But
absolutely,
most of all, keep enjoying it. Don't
absolutely.
let it scare you. That's all we have today. Thanks for joining us again on the Snowy's Camping Show. If you've got any questions, jump on our Facebook group. If you haven't already joined, ask to join on the Snowy's Camping Show. Ask us any questions you want. We'll answer them for you. And as Lauren mentioned earlier, make sure you subscribe either via YouTube, your favorite podcast app, or there was a third one. That's the Facebook group's the third one, which I've already mentioned, but we won't repeat ourselves again.
Yeah.
That's all we have. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
Catch you later, folks.
See ya.